We are live.
We hope.
Eh,
We're going to act as if everything's
yeah.
okay. We'll get the eyeball. It'll tell us a couple of people are on, so we don't have to repeat ourselves.
Yeah, I
I
guess
am old.
your son is waving from the wall. Anyway,
There you go. I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's two-born son.
This is Classic Kings. Cersei or not Cersei? Cat. 7.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Cat
Wine
7.
for the Kingslayer.
Yeah. I know. This is a pretty good. I love the interaction between both of them. It's is not my favorite conversation in the books. There you go, Chris.
No,
It's not my
it's the
favorite
first.
conversation in the books, but
Hey, this will.
it's hey. Um, Chris said that the other day you were having water problems, and I asked him, "Was the water problem your bidet?" And he just started laughing. Hey, Pod. My daughter, because she was present when I said that, she's like, "What's a bidet?" And I said, "It's the toilet that shoots water up your butt." and she's like, "Well, why would you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Save on toilet paper. It's a whole lot
Oh
cleaner." I don't
yeah,
know.
it's way better when you have a pandemic.
Yeah, this is true.
We had a couple of bidets and since then we've attached them to
Well,
we've attached them to every every toilet. I mean, you can buy, 20 or $40 somewhere in that kind of range,
yeah,
attachment, and it's pretty easy to hook up because the water outlet's right there for the toilet, right? I'm not talking about the expensive, Japanese electric ones that, heat it and all that. I'm just
yeah.
talking
Well,
just basic squirter.
yeah. What I meant to say was at your butt, not up your butt. Yeah, sorry. But
Depends on the angle.
yeah.
Got
Well,
over
I
the
mean,
soup of a day.
as far as I
Make sure no
know,
toilet paper shortage
um,
happened. We were
and
just fine. Yep, same here.
yeah, as far as I know, which I only run in sort of redneck circles, the days aren't nearly as successful in the United States as they are in other countries, especially like Japan, places like that. Um, but they have
Right.
their uses. I will agree with that 100%. Um,
Yep. Yep.
we appreciate everybody joining us. I'm glad y'all made it through the weekend. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Richard was saying that he had a couple of rough days with the weather. Um, there's a lot of weather going on in the
Yeah.
United
Yeah.
States.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got a heat dome, you probably got a front somewhere, right? And yeah, Kansas City area had well over 100,000 homes that still didn't have power after a day after the Friday night storms. And I'm not claiming that we're anywhere near some of the things going on in places like Philadelphia or not too long ago in Vermont and so forth. But um, I'm just it was pretty rough for some people. I never lost power here other than as they were fixing things, I'd have half a dozen circuit breakers blow. But um, but my family definitely actually came over to visit and enjoy the air conditioning.
uh, yeah, I was telling him we had with the heat here, we've had some heat induced thunderstorms. Nothing major. Never lost power. Um, it's been raining enough that my 8-year-old hasn't been able to play in his little kiddie pool because I got to clean the water and all that. He's not happy with it, but he'll get over it. He's got other stuff to play with. Um, on the cat front, we still have Sammy the
Plaza,
Sewers.
St. Louis is similar to Kansas City, and there's still places from the storms that came through Friday that are
Yeah.
knocked out. Yeah.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Pod has probably the worst string of bad weather that I've heard so far on Discord. Because every time I turn around, Pod's got some kind of storm that he's having to talk about or uh, uh,
There was a um, I think it was a 538 article where they went through and they tried to figure out like which areas of the country have the least predictable weather, and they went from like the smaller, including all the smaller metros, and then just including like the top 50 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, the top overall, I think, wound up being Omaha, and I think the top 50 wound up being Kansas City. But anywhere in the Midwest is going to be similar, right? The St. Louis is going to be
Anytime I hear
not too different from
Omaha,
Kansas City.
anytime I hear Omaha, I think of Mutual of Omaha's Wild
Oh,
Kingdom that used to come on.
there's lots of insurance companies there. They're
Okay.
their
Pod says,
GDP activity is at the tail end of Tornado Alley. He says.
yeah.
I would have said that was us, but okay.
It just depends. It probably got two tails.
That's probably true. It probably has some spikes going out in different directions.
Yeah. On the cat front, we still got Sammy Sewers. He left the garage. He came back to the garage. We're still planning on taking him to the land and everything.
Really?
I have been bit.
Given up.
Yeah, I haven't given up. I thought about it. Every time he bites me, I give up. And then the next time he wants to meow and rub up against my legs,
your heart melts.
Yeah, I have been bit 3 more times. Luckily, it just seems to be me. I can hear him out there meowing. He hears me talking. He's attracted to me, and luckily, I'm the one getting bit. Lindsay got bit once at the very beginning. But here's the thing. Yesterday, he sits in my seat in the garage. I open the door. He's in my seat. He loves me. I'm walking out of the garage. I did not let him up in my lap. And then he goes lazily, wraps his paws around my legs and goes, just like that, to give me the teeniest, tiniest little love bite. Like he didn't have anything in it. I'm like, those I can handle. I mean, if it don't break skin, we're good. So I have no idea. His eye that was all closed up and messed up. There is it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen because it's open up now and there's not an eyeball in there. There's something in there, but it's not an eyeball. So I don't know how his next visit to the vet is on the 30th. So I don't know what that's going to cost, or I don't know. But okay, enough about cats and storms and land and
we're done with the real world. Let's get to the fantasy.
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. Like I said, this is one of my favorite, not my favorite conversation, but one of my favorite conversations in the entire book.
Yeah, it's the first one that's really Jamie, where he's not. You can't really count him chastising Ned by murdering 3 guards, including Jory, right? That's not the real Jamie that we know and love. That's the villain without a hint of the decision to be good that's coming, right? So so this is a little more complicated Jamie, a little flashes of morality.
To be fair, he has not lost his hand yet. He has not lost his identity.
No, he hasn't decided to be good yet. But there's more complexity in him at this point. He's not just the villain who's just to annoy Ned, murdering 3 guards, right?
Right. But still, he is out of his element because he's chained up. So he hasn't lost the hand, but he does not have use really of his hands the way he would normally have. So I mean, he's still a little bit on. I would think a little bit more on defense than what he would normally be.
Sure.
So I mean, I think we can see a hint of that here and there in there.
Sure.
But like I say, start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. So take it away, Richard.
Thank you, sir. Class 55, Catlin 7, wine for the Kingslayer. The great hall of River Run was a lonely place for 2 to sit to supper. Deep shadows draped the walls. One of the torches had guttered out, leaving only 3. Catlin sat staring into her wine goblet. The vintage tasted thin and sour on her tongue. Brienne was across from her. Between them, her father's high seat was as empty as the rest of the hall. Even the servants were gone. She'd given them leave to join the celebration. The walls of the keep were thick, yet even so, they could hear the muffled sounds of revelry from the yard outside. I cannot blame them, Catlin thought. They do not know, and if they did, why should they care? They never knew my sons, never watched Bran climb with their hearts in their throats, pride and terror so mingled they seemed as one, never heard him laugh, never smiled to see Rickon trying so fiercely to be like his older brothers. She stared at the supper set before her, trout wrapped in bacon, salad of turnip greens and red fennel and sweetgrass. peas and onions and hot bread. Brienne was eating methodically, as if supper were another chore to be accomplished. I am become a sour woman, Catelyn thought. I take no joy in mead nor meat, and song and laughter have become suspicious strangers to me. I am a creature of grief and dust and bitter longings. There is an empty place within me where my heart was once. Empty or stone?
Yeah, there you go. I've always wondered why George gives us such descriptive meals, telling them what he eats and what they eat and everything and all that. I'm assuming that it just adds to the realism of the environment in which we're having.
Well, I mean, the most obvious reason it would be that he sets us up to see what extravagant meals look like, so that we'll notice the red wedding when Walter's deliberately not being extravagant with the food.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's the obvious one. There's also a lot of symbolism he throws in some of these things, um, but you won't notice when things are different if you don't go into details, right? And so at the red wedding, we're specifically given, terrible food and extravagant drink, and
Okay.
it's supposed to look weird. We're supposed to notice that that's odd, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't catch that. Then.
The sound of the other woman's eating had become intolerable to her. Brienne, I am no fit company. Go join the revels if you would. Drink a horn of ale and dance to Ryman's harping. I'm not made for revels, milady. Her big hands tore apart a heel of black bread. Brienne stared at the chunks as if she'd forgotten what they were. If you command it, Catelyn could sense her discomfort. Well, I thought you might enjoy happier company than mine. I'm well content. The girl used the bread to sop up some of the bacon grease the trout had been fried in. There was another bird this morning. Catelyn did not know why she said it. Sounds like intervention to me.
There you go.
The maester woke me at once. That was dutiful, but not kind. Not kind at all. She had not meant to tell Brienne. No one knew but her and Maester Vyman. She had meant to keep it that way until what, foolish woman? Will holding it secret in your heart make it any less true? If you never tell, never speak of it, will it become only a dream, less than a dream, a nightmare half remembered? Oh, if only the gods would be so good.
Hey, before you go any further,
Yep.
two paragraphs being separate, and it's going, and she had meant to keep it that way until what? It's like she's having a conversation, an argument with herself or with
Yeah.
somebody else that might be bumbling around in there a little bit.
Sure. Is it news of King's Landings? Asked Brienne. Would that it was. The bird came from Castle Kerwin, from Sir Roderick, my castellan. Dark wings, dark words. He has gathered what power he could and is marching on Winterfell to take the castle back. How unimportant all that sounded now. But he said, he wrote, he told me, My lady, what is it? Is it some news of your sons? Such a simple question that was. Would that the answer could be as simple. When Catelyn tried to speak, the words caught in her throat. I have no sons but Robb. She managed those terrible words without a sob, and for that much she was glad. Brienne looked at her with horror. My lady? Bran and Rickon tried to escape, but were taken in a mill on the Acorn Water. Theon Greyjoy has mounted their heads on the walls of Winterfell. Theon Greyjoy, who ate at my table since he was a boy of 10. I've said it, gods forgive me. I've said it and made it true. Brienne's face was a watery blur. She reached across the table, but her fingers stopped short of Catelyn's, as if the touch might be unwelcome. There are no words, my lady, my good lady. Your sons, they're with the gods now. Are they? Catelyn said sharply. What god would let this happen? Bran! He's basically Doctor Strange. Both have a third eye and both look at every possibility before choosing the only acceptable outcome.
He's just sitting there with one finger up.
Rickon was only a baby. How could he deserve such a death? And Bran, when I left the North, he'd not opened his eyes since his fall. But now he's opened all three. I had to go before he woke. Now I can never return to him or hear him laugh again. She showed Brienne her palms, her fingers. These scars, they sent a man to cut Bran's throat as he lay sleeping. He would have died then, and me with him, but Bran's wolf tore out the man's throat. That gave her a moment's pause. I suppose Theon killed the wolves, too. He must have, elsewise I was certain the boys would be safe so long as the direwolves were with them, like Robb and his Grey Wind. But my daughters have no wolves now. The abrupt shift of topic left Brienne bewildered. Notice that we're seeing we're seeing in somebody's head here who's not the POV. I mean, we mentioned that way back when that this does happen. That George occasionally tells you what people are thinking in other people's POVs if it helps the story. There is no hard and fast rule on the POV structure. Sitting under the three singers and waving at y'all. No.
Hey, Charles. Quick thing. If the wolves had not been separated from Bran and Rickon, when Theon had come to his room, Summer would have been there to protect Bran. So
Theon could have been killed right there. Of course, that probably would have gone all that great. I don't know if that would have gone all that great, but
yeah. I mean, something bad would have happened for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, the abrupt shift of topic left Brienne bewildered. Your daughters. Sansa was a lady at 3, always so courteous and eager to please. She loved nothing so well as tales of knightly valor. Men would say she had my look, but she will grow into a woman far more beautiful than I ever was. You can see that. Often sent away her maid so I could brush her hair myself. She had auburn hair, lighter than mine, and so thick and soft, the red in it would catch the light of the torches and shine like copper. Foreshadowing Grey when not being with Robb is danger, right?
Yes,
definitely. And Arya, well, Ned's visitors would often mistake her for a stable boy if they rode into the yard unannounced. Arya was a trial, it must be said, half a boy and half a wolf pup. For better anything, it became her heart's desire. She had Ned's long face and brown hair that always looked as though a bird had been nesting in it. I despaired of ever making a lady of her. She collected scabs as other girls collect dolls, and would say anything that came into her head. I think she must be dead, too. When she said that, it felt as though a giant hand were squeezing her chest. I want them all dead, Brienne. Theon Greyjoy first, then Jaime Lannister and Cersei and the Imp. Everyone. But my girls, well, the Queen, she has a little girl of her own, Bran said awkwardly, and sons, too, of an age with yours. When she hears, perhaps she may take pity and send my daughters back unharmed. Catelyn smiled sadly. There's a sweet innocence about you, child. I could wish, but no. Robb will avenge his brothers. Ice can kill as dead as fire. Ice was Ned's great sword. Valyrian steel marked with the ripples of 1,000 foldings, so sharp I feared to touch it. Robb's blade is dull as a cudgel compared to ice. It will not be easy for him to get Theon's head off, I fear. The Starks do not use headsmen. Ned always said that the man who passes the sentence should swing the blade, though he never took any joy in the duty. But I would. Oh, yes. She stared at her scarred hands, opened and closed them, then slowly raised her eyes. I've sent him wine. Wine? Brienne was lost. Robb? Or Theon Greyjoy? The Kingslayer. The ploy had served her well with Cleo's Frey. I hope you're thirsty, Jaime. I hope your throat is dry and tight. I would like you to come with me. I'm yours to command, my lady. Good, Catelyn rose abruptly. Stay. Finish your meal in peace. I will send for you later, at midnight. So late, my lady? So Preston would say that part of the problem with knights and king's guards and so forth is that they basically outsource their moral code to the person they swear to, and that doesn't work. And so his point would be, right, Jaime was a knight of the king's guard, effectively outsourcing his morality to the king, which doesn't work. And, Catelyn, who's kind of giving some hints here that she's vengeance obsessed, right, is being Brienne is hers to command, right? Brienne has relinquished moral authority to a person who's obsessed with vengeance.
See, I always wondered about that because, all right, what was it? Steel Shanks that works for Roose Bolton. That's a knight.
And he doesn't.
Sorry, if you're a knight,
he's the one that doesn't really care, right? He's the one that Jaime says is like all the men he sees, the ones that will do whatever evil's asked of them, and then go home to their kids and be fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're an honorable knight and for some reason you're in the service of Roose Bolton, in that process, they swear to ask no deed that would cause you dishonor.
Right.
But who's to say what that is? So if you refuse the Lord that you're in service of, does the Lord decide what's the dishonor? And if you refuse that order, okay, Bruce Bolton would kill you, right?
I mean, clearly it doesn't work, but the idea would be that they're supposed to not. They're promising not to do that, and there's a social contract, and who violates it depends on who does what they claim they're not going to do, and so forth, right?
Right.
So late. I will send for you later at midnight. So late, my lady? The dungeons are windowless. 1 hour is much like another down there, and for me, all hours are midnight. Her footsteps rang hollowly when Catelyn left the hall. As she climbed the Lord Hoster's solar, she could hear them outside shouting, "Tully!" and a cup to the brave young lord!" My father is not dead, she wanted to shout down at them. My sons are dead, but my father lives, damn you all, and he is your lord still. Yeah, it is kind of insulting. Anyway. Lord Hoster was deep in sleep. He had a cup of dream wine not so long ago. My lady, Maester Diamond said. For the pain. He will not know you are here. It does no matter, Catelyn said. He's more dead than alive, yet more alive than my poor sweet sons. Not so much. Anyway. My lady, is there aught I might do for you? A sleeping draught, perhaps? Thank you, Maester, but no. I will not sleep away my grief. Bran and Rickon deserve better from me. Go and join the celebration. I will sit with my father for a time. As you will, my lady. Diamond bowed and left her. Lord Hoster lay on his back, mouth open, his breath a faint whistling sigh. I have no one to talk to, father, she told him. I pray, but the gods do not answer. Last night I dreamed that time Lysa and I got lost while riding back from Seaguard. Do you remember? That strange fog came up and we fell behind the rest of the party. Everything was gray and I could not see a foot past the nose of my horse. We lost the road. The branches of the trees were like long, skinny arms reaching out to grab us as we passed. Lysa started to cry. When I shouted, the fog seemed to swallow the sound. But Peter knew where we were, and he rode back and found us.
Peter, which would give you a indication that there might be more to Peter than meets the eye.
Yeah, specifically, this is about the trees trying to grab them, right? So
Yeah.
Peter is saving them from essentially the others, the tree warriors, whatever you want to call it, right?
Well, I'm suggesting that even before the battle with Brandon and the Three-Eyed Crow coming to him in near death, his experience in opening his third eye,
Right.
there was still something special about
Peter saving her from the trees. Yep.
Well, no, he used abilities that he wasn't quite sure that he had at the time. I mean,
yeah, I mean that's certainly what's being symbolized here, right? Is green seer type magic that he's saving her from the trees.
Right.
But there's no one to find me now, is there? This time I have to find our own way, and it's hard, so hard. I keep remembering the Stark words. Winter has come, father. For me, for me. Rob must fight the Greyjoys now as well as the Lannisters. And for what? For a gold hat and an iron chair? Kind of reminds me of Khal Drogo. Surely the land has bled enough. I want my girls back. I want Rob to lay down his sword and pick some homely daughter of Walder Frey to make him happy and give him sons. I want Bran and Rickon back. I want, Catelyn in her head. I want, she said once more, then her words were gone. After a time, the candle guttered and went out. Moonlight slanted between the slats of the shutters, laying pale silvery bars across her father's face. She could hear the soft whisper of his labored breathing, the endless rush of waters, the faint chords of some love song drifting up from the yard, so sad and sweet. I loved a maid as red as autumn, Ryman sang, with sunset in her hair. So as important as Valen, the Maid of Winter, is, I do still wonder if the other three seasons matter, and I guess Catelyn the Great is being called Autumn, the Queen before Val's Winter. See Triplet Trigger in episode 7. Catelyn never noticed when the singing ended. Hours had passed, yet it seemed only a heartbeat before Brienne was at the door. My lady, she announced softly, midnight has come. Midnight has come, father, she thought, and I must do my duty. The jailer was a furtive little man with broken veins in his nose. The Crescents too. Begging your forgiveness, milady, but Lord Edmure says no one is to see the Kingslayer without a writing from him with his seal upon it. Lord Edmure? Has my father died and no one told me? The jailer licked his lips. No, milady, not as I knows. You will open the cell, or you will come with me to Lord Hoster's solar and tell him why you saw fit to defy me. His eyes fell. As milady says, the keys were chained to the studded leather belt that girdled his waist. He muttered under his breath as he sorted through them, until he found the one that fit the door to the Kingslayer's cell. So Edmure tried to prevent this whole thing from happening. Anyway,
Yes, he tried.
yep. Go back to your ale and leave us, she commanded. Brienne, see that I am not disturbed. Nodding, Brienne took up a position just outside the cell, her hand resting on the pommel of her sword. My lady will call if she has need of me. Catelyn shouldered aside the heavy wood and iron door and stepped into foul darkness. The lamplight revealed a pail overflowing with feces in one corner and a huddled shape in another. A flagon of wine stood beside the door, untouched. So much for that ploy. I'd be thankful that the jailer did not drink it himself, I suppose. Jaime raised his hands to cover his face, the chains around his wrists clanking. Lady Stark, he said in a voice hoarse with disuse, I fear I am in no condition to receive you. Look at me, sir. The light hurts my eyes. A moment, if you would. Jaime Lannister had been allowed no razor since the night he was taken in the Whispering Wood, and a shaggy beard covered his face, once so like the Queen's. Glinting gold in the lamplight, the whiskers made him look like some great yellow beast, magnificent even in chains. His unwashed hair fell to his shoulders in ropes and tangles. The clothes were rotting on his body. His face was pale and wasted, and even so, the power and the beauty of the man were still apparent. I see you had no taste for the wine I sent you. Such sudden generosity seems somewhat suspect. I can have your head off any time I want. Charles says, I would. Why would I need to poison you? Totally. Anyway, death by poison can seem natural. Harder to claim that my head simply fell off. He squinted up from the floor, his cat green eyes slowly becoming accustomed to the light. I'd invite you to sit, but your brother has neglected to provide me a chair. I can stand well enough. Can you? You look terrible, I must say, but perhaps it's just the light in here. He was fettered at wrist and ankle, each cuff chained to the others, so he could neither stand nor lie comfortably. The ankle chains were bolted to the wall. Are my bracelets heavy enough for you, or did you come to add a few more? I'll rattle them prettily if you like. You brought this on yourself, she reminded him. We granted you the comfort of a tower cell befitting your birth and station. You repaid us by trying to escape. A cell is a cell. Some under Castle Rock make this one seem a sunlit garden. One day, perhaps I'll show them to you. If he's cowed, he hides it well, Catelyn thought. A man chained hand and foot should keep a more courteous tongue in his mouth, sir. I did not come here to be threatened. No? Then surely it was to have your pleasure of me? It's said that widows grow weary of their empty beds. We of the Kingsguard vow never to wed, but I suppose I could still service you if that's what you need. Pour some of that wine and slip out of the gown, and we'll see if I'm up to it. Catelyn stared down at him in revulsion. Was there ever a man as beautiful or as vile as this one? If you said that in my son's hearing, he would kill you for it. Only so long as I was wearing these, Jaime Lannister rattled his chains at her. We both know the boy's afraid to face me in single combat. My son may be young, but if you take him for a fool, you are sadly mistaken. It seems to me that you were not so quick to make challenges when you had an army at your back. Did the old kings of winter hide behind their mother's skirts as well? I grow weary of this, sir. There are things I must know. Why should I tell you anything? To save your life? You think I fear death? That seemed to amuse him. You should. Your crimes will have earned you a place of torment in the deepest of the seven hells if the gods are just. What gods are those, Lady Catelyn? The trees your husband prayed to? How well did they serve him when my sister took his head off? Jaime gave a chuckle. If there are gods, why is the world so full of pain and injustice? Because of men like you. There are no men like me. There's only me. At least living. In a minute, Jaime will claim Brandon was a man like me.
Okay, I know I beat this to the I don't know how many times, but on the Jaime is Azor High, this line right here was one of the things that there are no men like me. There's only me. There's only one Azor High. Take it for what you will.
Yeah, I still find it funny that he turns around and argues with her over whether Brandon is a man like him or not, after he's just said there's no men like him. Anyway. There is nothing here but arrogance and pride and the empty courage of a madman. I'm wasting my breath with this one. If there was ever a spark of honor in him, it is long dead. If you'll not speak with me, so be it. Drink the wine or piss in it, sir. It makes no matter to me. Hand was at the door pull when he said, Lady Stark. She turned and waited. Things go to rust in this damp, Jaime went on. Even a man's courtesies. Stay and you shall have your answers. For a price. Jaime and Stoneheart are going to have a similar conversation again soon. I actually don't think so. I think Jaime's going to be so-called dead, right? That's my take on it. So I don't actually expect him to talk to her. I don't think it would go very well anyway. Not that anybody can, not to mention you'd only be speaking to the translator.
Well, I mean, you have convinced me that Brienne's going to show the golden hand, and that's going to be like a Davos, and yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I've tried to list all the fake deaths, and then you realize that there's more of them, and
Yeah,
all the aliases and all this stuff. And there's actually quite a few more than I realized. Um,
yeah, but
anyway, but
the
I
Davos
listed a whole
and the
bunch, and then
hand,
I
yeah,
realized that there's a whole bunch more that I missed. Like anyway, but I mean the most obvious would be Theon vows he's going to kill the Stark boys and kills the Stark boys, sort of proves that he does,
yeah,
right? Tywin claims that he's going to kill Gregor and proves that he does. Um, Manderley vows that he's going to kill Davos and proves that he does. And Brienne's promise is not to bring back the Kingslayer alive. She's specifically not supposed to bring back the Kingslayer alive. Her promise is take the sword and slay the Kingslayer. Her job is to bring back his dead body. She's going to bring back a dead body, and it's not going to be his dead body, and it's going to have a cut off hand and a golden hand, a cut off at the wrists and a golden hand, and
yeah,
But anyway, and yeah, there's a lot more than those, but those are the ones that are most similar to her vow. Right? You don't get to renegotiate when you scream sword, and the sword is take the sword and slay the Kingslayer. Choose.
yeah,
It's you don't get to renegotiate. You don't get to bring him back alive. You're not allowed to bring him back alive. Catelyn's been opposed to trials in the first book.
yeah,
After announcing that Tyrion had a right to a trial and a right to trial by combat, Catelyn still urges her sister not to give him a trial, not to give him trial by combat. Um, she, she doesn't give a trial to Merritt Frey. She doesn't give a trial to Brienne. She doesn't give a trial to Hyle Hunt. She doesn't give a trial to Podrick Payne. Like she's not going to suddenly turn around and give a trial after being opposed to trials and opposed to trials and opposed to trials and opposed to trials and opposed to trials. Going to turn around and give a trial to Jaime. That's not happening.
no,
Anyway, he has no shame. Captives do not set prices. Oh, you'll find mine modest enough. Your turnkey tells me nothing but vile lies, and he cannot even keep them straight. One day he says Cersei has been flayed, and the next it's my father. Answer my questions, and I'll answer yours. Truthfully? Oh, it's truth you want. Be careful, my lady. Tyrion says that people often claim to hunger for truth, but seldom like the taste when it's served up. I'm strong enough to hear anything you care to say. As you will, then. But first, if you be so kind, the wine. My throat is raw. Catelyn hung the lamp from the door and moved the cup and flagon closer. Jaime sloshed the wine around his mouth before he swallowed. Sour and vile, he said, but it will do. He put his back to the wall, drew his knees up to his chest, and stared at her. Your first question, Lady Catelyn. Not knowing how long this game might continue, Catelyn wasted no time. Are you Joffrey's father? You would never ask unless you knew the answer. I want it from your own lips, he shrugged. Joffrey is mine, as are the rest of Cersei's brood, I suppose. You admit to being your sister's lover? I've always loved my sister, and you owe me two answers. Do all my kin still live? Sir Stafford Lannister was slain at Oxcross, I am told. Jaime was unmoved. Uncle Dolt, my sister called him. It's Cersei and Tyrion who concern me, as well as my lord father. They live, all three, but not long if the gods are good. Jaime drank some more wine. Ask your next. Catelyn wondered if he would dare to answer her next question with anything but a lie. How did my son Bran come to fall? I flung him from a window. The easy way he said it took her voice away for an instant. If I had a knife, I would kill him now, she thought, until she remembered the girls. Her throat constricted as she said, You were a knight, sworn to defend the weak and innocent. He was weak enough, but perhaps not so innocent. He was spying on us. Bran would not spy. Then blame those precious gods of yours who brought the boy to our window and gave him a glimpse of something he was never meant to see. Blame the gods? She said, incredulous. Yours was the hand that threw him. You meant for him to die. His chains chinked softly. I seldom fling children from towers to improve their health. Yes, I meant for him to die. And when he did not, you knew your danger was worse than ever, so you gave your cat's paw a bag of silver to make certain Bran would never wake. Did I now? Jaime lifted his cup and took a long swallow. I won't deny we talked of it, but you were with the boy day and night. Your maester and Lord Eddard attended him frequently, and there were guards. Even those damned direwolves would have required cutting my way through half of Winterfell. And why bother when the boy seemed like to die of his own accord? It's a fair point, and it kind of shows that whoever did this was smart enough to figure out that they needed a distraction to explain it to a person who looks not exactly like somebody who hangs out with highborn nobility, and convince them to pose that distraction so that they could get the job done.
Yeah.
Somebody who would inspire loyalty, where words imply that it was a king's man, and someone who brought a bag of silver to Winterfell, perhaps. Or I know your alternative, and I should mention, I definitely prefer. I think the king's clues could point at Mance, or we know that Robert himself is. There's some hints that he's literally a big fool. We're told only a fool would send a man with his own dagger, right?
Yeah.
And there are some words that imply it, a couple times implied it was a king's man, right? So Illyrio Mapartes would argue that it's Robert who's being pointed to. I would say that the whole point of the whole thing is that somebody is framing Robert. I'm not suggesting she's going to give him a trial's redemption will be to hang in their stead. Okay.
No.
Anyway, I think it's well set up that I think it's well set up that that Brienne will do what everybody does when they promise to kill somebody they don't really want to kill, and somebody on Reddit tried to argue that with me that it would be bad writing for Catelyn to believe that Brienne would behave honestly and honorably, and I'm like, really? Would it? Really? As compared to, Dorne accepting Tywin Lannister, or the Crown accepting Manderley, or anyone in Winterfell believing in Theon? Really? Anyway. If you lie to me, this session is at an end. Catelyn held out her hands to show him her fingers and palms. The man who came to slit Bran's throat gave me these scars. You swear you had no part in sending him? On my honor as a Lannister. Your honor as a Lannister is worth less than this. She kicked over the waste pail. Foul-smelling brown ooze crept across the floor of the cell, soaking in the straw. Jaime Lannister backed away from the spill as far as his chains would allow. I may indeed have shit for honor, I won't deny it, but I have never yet hired anyone to do my killing. Believe what you will, Lady Stark, but if I'd wanted your Bran dead, I would have slain him myself. Gods be merciful, he's telling the truth. If you did not send the killer, your sister did. If so, I'd know. Cersei keeps no secrets from me. Well, that's false. Then it was the imp. Tyrion is as innocent as your Bran. He wasn't climbing around outside of anyone's window spying. Then why did the assassin have his dagger? The dagger was this. It was so long, she said, holding her hands apart. Plain but finely made, with a blade of Valyrian steel and a dragon-bound hilt. Your brother won it from Lord Baelish at the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day. Lannister poured, drank, poured, and stared into his wine cup. This wine seemed to be improving as I drink it. Imagine that. I seem to remember that dagger now that you describe it. Won it, you say? How? Wagering on you when you tilted against the Knight of Flowers. And when she heard, sorry, I accidentally clicked off. When she heard her own words, Catelyn knew she had gotten it wrong. No, it's the other way. It would be bad writing people bother me. Yeah. I was like, seriously? Like, you really think that? Anyway, yes, definitely. Tyrion always backed me in the list, Jaime said, but that day Sir Loras unhorsed me. A mischance. I took the boy too lightly, but no matter. Whatever my brother wagered, he lost. But that dagger did change hands. I recall it now. Robert showed it to me that night at the feast. His Grace loved to salt my wounds, especially when drunk. And when was he not drunk? Tyrion Lannister. So this might be the first time when we really learn with certainty that it was Robert's dagger, right? It's Robert that somebody's trying to frame.
Yeah.
Originally. Well, Littlefinger decided that he would rather frame Tyrion than Robert. Tyrion Lannister had said much the same thing as they rode through the mountains of the moon, Catelyn remembered. She refused to believe him. Peter had sworn otherwise. Peter, who had been almost a brother. Peter, who loved her so much he fought a duel for her hand. And yet if Jaime and Tyrion told the same tale, what did that mean? The brothers had not seen each other since departing Winterfell more than a year ago. Are you trying to deceive me? Somewhere there was a trap here. True, and she's so close. I'm admitting to shoving your precious urchin out a window. What would it gain me to lie about this knife? He tossed down another cup of wine. Believe what you will, I'm past caring what people say of me. It's my turn. Have Robert's brothers taken the field? They have. Now there's a miserly response. Give me more than that, or your next answer will be as poor. So George uses the word transcription software might mistake for a slur, so I'm using miserly. See, college humor is 31 words that sound like slurs but aren't. Stannis marches against King's Landing, she said grudgingly. Renly is dead, murdered at Bitterbridge by his brother, though through some black art I do not understand. A pity, Jaime said. I rather liked Renly, though Stannis is quite another tale. What side have the Tyrells taken? Renly at first. Now I could not say. Your boy must be feeling lonely. Robb was 16 a few days past, a man grown and a king. He's won every battle he's fought. The last word we had from him, he had taken the crag from the Westerlings. He hasn't faced my father yet, has he? When he does, he'll defeat him as he did you. He took me unawares, a craven's trick. You dare talk of tricks? Your brother Tyrion sent us cutthroats in envoy's garb under a peace banner. If it were one of your sons in the cell, wouldn't his brothers do as much for him? My son has no brothers, she thought, but she would not share her pain with a creature such as this. He has only half-brothers. See Tony Teflon. Jaime drank some more wine. What's a brother's life when honor is at stake, eh? Another sip. Tyrion is clever enough to realize that your son will never consent to ransom me. Catelyn could not deny it. Robb's bannermen would sooner see you dead, Richard Karstark in particular. You slew 2 of his sons in the Whispering Wood. The 2 with the white sunburst, were they? Jaime gave a shrug. If truth be told, it was your son that I was trying to slay. The others got in my way. The others tend to do that.
Yes.
I killed them in fair fight in the heat of battle. Any other knight would have done the same. How can you still count yourself a knight when you've forsaken every vow you ever swore? Christopher said 3. Jaime reached for the flagon to refill his cup. So many vows, they make you swear and swear. Defend the king. Obey the king. Keep his secrets. Do his bidding. Your life for his. But obey your father. Love your sister. Protect the innocent. Defend the weak. Respect the gods. Obey the laws. It's too much. No matter what you do, you're forsaking one vow or the other. He took a healthy swallow of wine and closed his eyes for an instant, leaning his head back against the patch of nitro on the wall. I was the youngest man ever to wear the white cloak, and the youngest to betray all it stood for, Kingslayer. Kingslayer, he pronounced carefully. And such a king he was. He lifted his cup. To Aerys Targaryen, the second of his name, Lord of the 7 kingdoms and protector of the realm, and to the sword that opened his throat, a golden sword, don't you know, till his blood ran red down the blade. Those are the Lannister colors, red and gold. As
Red
he
blade.
laughed, yep. So he's Azor High, is what you're saying. As he laughed, she realized the wine had done its work. Jaime had drained much of the flagon, and he was drunk. Only a man like you would be proud of such an act. I told you, there are no men like me. Answer me this, Lady Stark. Did your Ned ever tell you the manner of his father's death, or his brother's, who's a man just like me? Anyway. They strangled Brandon while his father watched, and then killed Lord Rickard as well. An ugly tale and 16 years old. Why was he asking about it now? Killed, yes, but how? I like Jaime's honesty and how Lannister still is, and how Cat started to look at the possibility of her truth being wrong. This is a great chapter, but he's going to die. Sorry, dude.
Well, come on, Charles, man. Take my ball and go home.
Did your Ned ever tell you the manner of his father's death of brothers? They strangled Brandon while his father watched, and then killed Lord Rickard as well. An ugly tale, 16 years old. What is he talking about now? Killed, yes, but how? The cord of the axe, I suppose. Jaime took a swallow, wiped his mouth. No doubt Ned wished to spare you, his sweet young bride, if not quite a maiden. Well, you wanted truth. Ask me. We made a bargain. I can deny you nothing. Ask. Notice that Catelyn never seems upset by accusations she was not quite a maiden. This isn't the first time that's happened, and she never complains about that. Again, see Teflon, Tony Teflon TV.
There you go.
Dead is dead. I do not want to know this. Brandon was different from his brother, wasn't he? He had blood in his veins instead of cold water. More like me. he is drunk, so of course he doesn't have any real consistent logic.
Yeah.
Brandon was nothing like you. If you say so, you and he were to wed. I do discuss the Tony Teflon thing. So, if you say so, you and he would wed. If you say so, after I claim no men were like me. He was on his way to River Run when, strange how telling it still made her throat grow tight after all these years, when he heard about Lyanna and went to King's Landing instead. It was a rash thing to do. She remembered how her own father had raged when the news had been brought to River Run. The gallant fool was what he called Brandon. Of course, most of us think this was a lie that led to not just Brandon, but also Robert and Ned spreading a false rumor that was treasonous to be spreading, and therefore required that they be ordered to be executed, and not out of some mad act, but because you can't let them continue to spread this lie. So that in a very real sense, it was Robert's rebellion was built on a lie. It was a lie that Robert and Ned were continued to spread, and the Mad King had to stop, right?
Yeah.
And so he gave the politically untenable execution order, and that's why there had to be a rebellion.
Yeah.
So, given that we're being told that Brandon is the one man like him, could this be foreshadowing for Jaime doing some similar gallant fool act later? I don't know. It's just a thought that came to me as I was thinking through the Brandon Jaime.
Yeah.
I never really thought of Brandon and Jaime as a parallel, but it's specifically here in this act that is being compared to an act that Jaime would do, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're told that it was a rash act, and we've already seen that Jaime is a rash type of man. I have always associated Brandon to be more like Robert in his drinking,
sure,
women, all that kind of
it
stuff.
just hit me this time as I kept looking at this. There's no man like me. Brandon was like me, right?
Yeah.
In this chapter, and I was like, well, that's interesting. And it's specifically that he had this passion to become this gallant fool, was what he called Brandon, right? And in a sense, you see Jaime's becoming more gallant, perhaps still maintaining some of that foolish, charging in kind of attitude, right?
Yeah.
So I could see him doing something like this somehow, some sort of gallant fool act, and maybe that's going to be what winds up killing him, is some brave and gallant fool thing. I mean, it's certainly what Brienne does, right? No choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
no chance of a choice.
The only person, which Brandon does it because of a woman. All right. The only woman that I can see Jaime doing that for is Brienne.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering if he might do something heroic to save Brienne in the story that probably gets him killed based on what it's being paralleled with.
No, Ben,
Sorry. Jaime poured the last cup of wine. He rode in the Red Keep with a few companions, shouting for Prince Rhaegar to come out and die, but Rhaegar wasn't there. Aerys sent his guards to arrest them all for plotting his son's murder. The others were Lord's sons too, it seems to me. Ethan Glover was Brandon's squire, Catelyn said. He was the only one to survive. The others were Jeffrey Mallister, Kyle Royce, and Elbert Aaron, John Aaron's nephew and heir. It was clear how she still remembered the names after so many years. Is Bran helping her remember?
It's possible.
Aerys accused them of treason and summoned their fathers to court to answer the charge, with the sons as hostages. When they came, he had them murdered without trial, fathers and sons both. There were trials of the sort. Lord Rickard demanded trial by combat, and the king granted the request. Stark armored himself as if for battle, thinking to duel one of the king's guard. Me, perhaps. Instead, they took him to the throne room and suspended him from the rafters, while two of Aerys' pyromancers kindled a blaze beneath him. The king told him that fire was the champion of House Targaryen, so all Lord Rickard needed to prove himself innocent of treason was, well, not burn. When the fire was blazing, Brandon was brought in. His hands were chained behind his back, and around his neck was a wet leathern cord attached to a device the king had brought from Tyrosh. His legs were left free, though, and his longsword was set down just beyond his reach. Their pyromancers roasted Lord Rickard slowly, banking and fanning that fire carefully to get a nice even heat. His cloak caught first, and then his surcoat. Soon he wore nothing but metal and ashes. Next he would start to cook, Aerys promised, unless his son could free him. Brandon tried, but the more he struggled, the tighter the cord constricted around his throat. In the end, he strangled himself. As for Lord Rickard, the steel of his breastplate turned cherry red before the end, and his gold melted off his spurs and dripped down into the fire. Kind of sounds like Viserys, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I stood at the foot of the Iron Throne in my white armor and white cloak, filling my head with thoughts of Cersei. After, Gerald Hightower himself took me aside and said to me, "You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him. That was the White Bull, loyal to the end and a better man than me, all agree." Aries, Catelyn could taste bile at the back of her throat. The story was so hideous she suspected it had to be true. Ares was mad, the whole realm knew it. But if you had had me believe you slew him to avenge Brandon Stark, I made no such claim. The Starks were nothing to me. I will say, I think it passing odd that I am loved by one for a kindness I never did, and reviled by so many for my finest act. In Robert's coronation, I was made to kneel at the royal feet beside Grand Maester Pycelle and Varys the eunuch, so that he might forgive us our crimes before he took us into his service. As for your Ned, he should have kissed the hand that slew Ares, but he preferred to scorn the arse he found sitting on Robert's throne. I think Ned Stark loved Robert better than he ever loved his brother or his father, or even you, my lady. He was never unfaithful to Robert, was he? Jaime gave a drunken laugh. Come, Lady Stark, don't you find this all terribly amusing? I think all of us agree that there's at least one R plus L baby, and that he was hiding the R plus L offspring from Robert. So, no, actually. Anyway, I find nothing about you amusing, Kingslayer. That name again. I don't think I'll fuck you after all. Littlefinger had you first, didn't he? I never eat off another man's trencher. Besides, you're not half so lovely as my sister. His smile cut. I've never lain with any woman but Cersei. In my own way, I've been truer than your Ned ever was. Poor old dead Ned. So who has shit for honor now, I ask you? What was the name of that bastard he fathered? Catelyn took a step backward. Brienne? No, that wasn't it. Jaime Lannister upended the flagon. A trickle ran down onto his face, bright as blood. Snow, that was the one. Such a white name. Like the pretty cloaks they give us in the Kingsguard when we swear our pretty oaths. Brienne pushed open the door and stepped inside the cell. You called, my lady? Give me your sword. Catelyn held out her hand. This is theory that Ned and Robert were in love. Yeah. This is my theory that Ned and Robert were in love. Yeah, that's a common theory, and it's the whole muscled like a maiden's fantasy thing and so forth, right? Up next, we have Clash 56, Theon 5, Asha comes to Winterfell. Briefly.
Yeah, and a bit too late. Well, I mean, I love that chapter.
Oh yeah, like I said, this is the first time we see hints of the real Jaime.
Yeah, and then there's also the close association between the Kingsguard men and the White Walkers, and then you got the reference of Snow and the Snow White of the Kingsguard's cloak. There's a lot of references all the way through the book of them being parallels of each other.
The White Walkers and the Kingsguard, definitely.
Well, I mean, if they are parallels of each other, that would basically confirm, I would think, that there is one above all that the White Walkers are protecting, if that makes sense.
The Lord Commander of the White Walkers, the Great Other, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or, well, it wouldn't be the Lord Commander of the White Walkers. It would be.
I was using that as an expression, right?
Yeah.
Just using that as an expression. Right? You got the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. You got the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. We have both of them often compared to the others. Just say there's a power structure and with one person above. Now,
right.
In reality, it's the King, not the Lord Commander, that really matters. The Kingsguard, right?
Right. I would think that there would be, if there is a Kingsguard of the White Walkers, there would be a Lord Commander of that Kingsguard, and then for there to be a Kingsguard, there has to be a king. Right.
Yeah, that would actually be the Great Other, not really the Lord Commander. I get why you're objecting to the term.
Right. Well, I mean, is the Great Other the Heart of Winter? I mean, are they protecting a floating? We've already had a blue heart, so is the Heart of Winter a red heart?
Well, I do think it's interesting that the first time that you have Dany in Prophecy, she's eating a heart. The second time you have Dany in Prophecy, well, it's not really the second time. Arguably, there's plenty of prophecies between there.
Yeah.
But the next major time, right? Maybe more importantly, the next time she's dealing with a heart is another prophecy time, and she destroys the heart again, right? Or with Drogon's help. And so it does make you wonder if the Heart of Winter needs to be destroyed by Dany and the dragons, because she's kind of done the first two.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, which I didn't play all the way through, I think I only played the first one. In the Telltale video games, the basis for the story, there is a Heart of Winter in the Telltale video games. If I'm not mistaken, Chris the Crow would probably know more about that. I think I heard that was the case. Which
Oh, you would imagine. I mean, it is
yeah,
called Telltale, although that they had lots of other games. They weren't just about Game
yeah,
of
yeah.
Thrones, but
I mean, they've
but
had I think Walking
but I
Dead,
mean,
all kinds of things.
how
But
how can
I
you
would
be
think
Telltale and not have a heart, right? I
just
mean, that's
the
the whole point of the
Telltale
name
Heart.
is Telltale.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking that maybe they got the heart of winter from George himself, or something that was
Sure,
said, or they might have figured it out too. I don't know. But
sure.
yeah, that's what I
Well,
thought, Chris.
we're getting 55 minutes in here, so we probably need to wrap up.
All right, that was a really good chapter.
Oh yeah.
It's the beginning of the Jamie humor that we'll come to love later on, but not
Mhm.
nearly as nice. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it
So,
definitely. I mean, we're definitely not to the point where, as you know, I mean, the final turning point is when he decides that I could be the good guy. I could
yes,
write my own story. I could be the hero, right?
Jamie's
I
a
mean,
just.
that's the final turning point. But he starts
Yeah,
to turn as soon as I mean, he's going to be with Brienne from now on, and he's kind of starts to turn with her. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we see that when he helps her in the boat instead of hitting her on the head. I mean, there's little
yeah,
things here and there.
which
Um,
could be, which could be
I know, I
intervention, finger
know, I
fingers,
know.
whatever it's called.
But like we've said before, with those little fingers, the hidden fingers,
Uh, I
the
think people have
potential
to,
for
yeah,
that decision already has to
right.
be there, though.
Right, right. Well, we don't believe that they're fundamentally changing people's character. That people have to that the free will has to be things that are within their character, and that in
Right.
fact it may have been a hint that it wasn't when Tyrion had the sudden urge to stand up and then didn't. Right, it could have either been somebody undoing a chess move, or it could have been,
Well, I
or it could
mean,
have been him
like I said,
refusing to go
when
along with the
Tyrion
plan.
goes to the top of the wall when he's going to leave, he can turn left or you can turn right. Well,
And
here's
that's
the
a more
thing: on
blatant
every
example.
decision, there is a left and a right, and
Right,
the original person has to have the capacity to turn left or right. It's just that the hidden
right.
fingers make sure that it's a right turn instead of a
Yeah.
left. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, there's this concept, essentially the quantum leap concept, that some of the paradoxes of time travel are resolved if what's going on is people are going back in the past and changing people using free will to change people's decisions.
Right.
But in theory, that still creates some of the same paradoxes if you can go further back than your life, right? And you could cause yourself to not come into existence. So
Yeah.
so that's where the quantum leap concept that you can't go back before earlier than
Your
your own
birth.
life comes from. It's
Yeah.
it's never really quite spelled out that clearly in Quantum Leap, at least in the original. I haven't watched the second series, but at least in the original, it was never quite that spelled out. But that's been a common concept in science fiction, and in particular, George has written a couple science fiction stories, including one with a dwarf named Tyrion, um, and he tends to buy into that concept of time travel, this idea that
Right.
you can work.
Well, I mean, if he's stuck to that kind of time travel in this story, then it's not Bran that's doing all the time traveling.
Not necessarily. So I do think that he may have decided that Bran violates that paradox by creating himself, because in a sense that God, as I am who I am, is supposed to be creating himself, and it's
Right.
supposed to be a paradoxical entity. So if Bran represents a paradoxical entity that creates himself, then he wouldn't actually be subject to all the rules. He'd be able to go back further and
Well,
create himself.
If Bran is Bran the Builder, then he could go all the way back to Bran the
Right,
Builder.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Is he
Yeah.
symbolically, Bran is supposed to be a paradox. If he's supposed to be, I am who I am. God is himself and is always existing. Then, and certainly, Old Man implies that Bran has been around like almost as long as the story's longer than Old Man,
Yep.
right? So she implies that he's able to go back in time further than her birth.
Yep. I agree.
So,
I agree.
anyway.
All right. Next up is Theon. We will see everybody same bat time, same bat channel on Wednesday, Hump Day, my favorite day of the week besides Friday.
Sounds good.
And everybody take care. I appreciate
I guess
y'all.
Sammy agrees.
Yeah. My Sammy. I don't know. Shout out to Jamie Lannister, Azor High, savior of us all. All praise his name. We will see everybody on Wednesday. Y'all take care.
Come on.
Oh, wait,
Come say
wait,
hi.
you see
Come
the
say goodbye.
face?
Come say goodbye.
Come on.
Sammy, come on. Come on. Come on. Sammy, come up. Sammy, I'm gonna lift you. All right. I'm gonna lift you up.
Yeah, your Sammy's a whole lot nicer than my Sammy.
Oh, is that the name of your cat?
Yeah, Sammy Sewers.
Okay. Hey, Leo, come here. Come here. Come say hi. Leo, come say hi.
Yeah,
Come, oh, I'm sorry, Sam. I'm sorry, Leo. I didn't mean to grab you. Okay.
that's the one. That's the one.
We call him the raccoon panda.
There you go.
He has a raccoon face on a panda body.
Kung Fu Panda. All right. We'll see everybody on Wednesday. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Bye, Richard.
Have a good one. Bye.